I was in Brian's stream and someone was asking about fighting games, and he was saying that we're currently in like a fighting game depression, sort of. Like he was like, the current state of fighting games does not fill me with joy. He's like,
I definitely don't feel good about the genre. I think the whole genre is on a complete downturn, and Street Fighter 6 is starting to just capitalize on a Japanese audience, and it's not bringing the whole genre up with it. What's the last successful fighting game that we've had?
I thought that was a really interesting perspective. I think he's been fighting Mai for 8 months. I also think that his assessment of fighting game releases being successful or not is probably true, actually, though. If you think what people have expectations for like what Tekken 8 could have been versus what it is, and what City of the Wolves could have been versus what it is, and maybe what 2XKO could have been versus what it is, I sort of see his point. I think the level of interest in City of the Wolves is about exactly what I would have expected. Be honest with you. I didn't think the game was going to be huge because it's not a massive IP. We knew that there was going to be a lot of money in it. The game has people who are interested in it and still traveling for tournaments and playing in it. For Tekken, it's the same thing. Like, even though there's people frustrated with patches and stuff, what it reached, particularly in the beginning when we started doing slam stuff around it, I don't know, I think a lot of people were pretty interested in it. As far as like mainstream sales and stuff, I doubt that that game did as well as they were hoping for. But my realistic expectation for what all the games are, I think that they probably are about where I expected. Some slightly better, some slightly worse. I think if you're like, I expect the game to boom and grow in a way that's like similar to maybe how Japan is with Street Fighter or something, is definitely not that case. In fact, I think for US, like Western or non-Japanese fighting game players who play Street Fighter, the way the game is growing in Japan is maybe concerning to them, actually. Western people, when it comes to Street Fighter, are like mad at a lot of things. Throw loops and like the lack of balance, the lack of costumes, the lack of, you know, all this stuff. And then you look at sales and interest in the game in Street Fighter 6, and it's like soaring in Japan. What they're learning is the game is massively successful in Japan and they can cater to that audience, and all the complaints from people in the West are like inconsequential because their player base and voice is less important if all of Japan is buying the game and interested in it.
It's hard for me to understand. Their strategy of doing next to nothing to promote and integrate the game with the community efforts in the tournament scene have worked tremendously in Japan. Like, honestly, seeing that this game is selling so successfully makes me more upset than happy. Capcom's just like, oh, look, everything's great. And I'm just like, fuck, Japan, stop buying the game for a little bit. I want a balance patch. I want them to do something. I don't think there's been anything I've been really that positive about for quite some time. And, you know, I've accepted that they're never going to patch this game.
If you're like, we're yapping, they're not changing any of the things we're yapping about, and the game is having insane success, they're like, I lost, basically, right? It's probably the way they're feeling. Maybe he means that the games are not having the same cultural boom that they did 10 or 15 years ago. Like, you know, when CPT was big back in 2015, 16, 17, etc., where everyone was traveling around the world. CPT was like all offline, and they had this huge offline leaderboard for it, and like people were really excited for it, and that kind of cultural shift. But I think that's not the case if the game's doing bad or good or anything, but more the case of like how the world is, and like with better online comes more online qualifiers, and with the costs associated with both running events and travel, doing online qualifiers and stuff is a lot more realistic. For example, for Street Fighter, the last two big major offline events, they did remote commentary because it's cheaper to have people come into a studio than it is to like fly a whole team out there and then set up everything on site and then do everything there locally and stuff, right? So saving money in those kinds of ways hurts the experience for on-site people and hurts the experience for the broadcast. But yeah, it is weird. There's like so many things about modern fighting games. It feels like the decision making is incorrect. But on the other hand, there's so many cool things happening in space also. The fact that there's new SNK games and they're putting money into all their older games. Street Fighter is doing very well. Tekken is out and the game is changing a lot. People are like sort of hot and cold about it, but receiving updates. It has more money on the line than when it had Tekken 7, and there's more opportunity to play the game. Guilty Gear is out, still has a tour, is getting a 2.0, is still having success. Tokon's on the horizon for them as well, and they're supporting Uni and Grand Blue at the same time. And then 2XKO just coming out, right? And like a million other games, like Virtual Fighter is making a new game. There's this Avatar game, like lots of stuff on the horizon for the genre, and lots of stuff being maintained at the same time or restored. Yeah, Dragon Ball getting updates, dude. Dragon Ball's from 2018. The fact that they were like, yo, we're gonna update Dragon Ball with a new balance patch and also a new character in this year is like so outlandish to me. Now, that being said, it's easy to also feel sad, I think, about some of the states of fighting games. I think every fighting game right now has a patch that they're waiting for, basically, right? Strive is waiting for a patch that makes it so that Potemkin is not outrageous and Happy Chaos, because Potemkin has been kind of Thanos for a while now. Fatal Fury having those top tier characters and being the same top tier characters for so long, and the balance of that game is like insane to me. I'm shocked it is the way it is. Tekken patch they've been waiting for a while and it keeps getting pushed back. People thought Armor King was going to be the big patch, but then he didn't get a patch with him, and now they're waiting until the end of TWT most likely. Street Fighter, same thing. People have been waiting for a patch for a while. The character release cadence is really slow, and Street Fighter has not really had a large patch in the game's lifespan, which maybe is not their intentions, to be honest. So that's something you might have to reconcile with, but they're waiting for that. And then Tuco, same thing. Even though they're patching often, people are waiting for like the big patch, which is probably the January patch. So it feels like every single game are stuck in a holding pattern for a new patch. The thing is though, is that when you patch your games, people will always feel like we're waiting for the next good patch because the next patch might fix all the problems I have. When in reality, like, no such thing exists, and you have to reconcile with the idea. An example for Street Fighter, it's clear they have a vision for what Street Fighter wants to be. I don't think they're going to change dramatically from that vision unless there's like a big title update or something. I think it's just like how the game is. I'm sorry. Like, if it's been 3 years and you're like, oh man, any minute now they'll change this thing about Street Fighter I hate, like, maybe that's what they want the game to be. And you have to accept at some point that it's not a flaw with the game necessarily for their eyes. Like, they see it as like, this is how the game is supposed to be. And they're like, yeah. You either have to accept it for what it is, which sucks sometimes, or play a different game. This version of the game is not dramatically different from where it launched. And I've played so much of the game since launch. I'm not playing the game mostly because like, I think if I kept playing, I'd probably get frustrated with it. And I don't really want to do that because I'm not frustrated at the game when I play it. Like, I think the game is like fun for me to play. And so I would rather not keep playing this version and then end up being frustrated. Like I think a lot of people are. You won't play 2XKO, so you don't want malware on your computer, but you'll let malware punch you in the face in Street Fighter 6. Is that what you're telling me? I'll tell you what, I'd rather have malware than fight Ryu. I mean, I'm envious of City of the Wolves fans, because if you like that game, aren't you just a fat fuck? City of the Wolves has gotten 5 characters since it came out in April. You're a fat fuck. Fuck you. Like, I'm very jealous as someone playing Street Fighter and Tuco. My steak too juicy, my lobster too buttery ass. Like, that shit's fucked up. Yeah, I mean, I'm so curious about Strive 2.0 also. Like, I would probably just be playing Strive with its current ranked if 2XKO didn't come out. That's probably what I'd be doing right now. I mean, Guilty Gear is like that too. How long has Potemkin been this way? Maybe they'll patch and nerf him eventually, but like, Happy Chaos in particular has been good for so long in that game. Like, this is just what they want the character to be like. What's a summary of why Pot is broken? He has tons of life, has armor that makes you respect it constantly. The thing about armor in that game is the Gatling options are not very wide for a lot of characters to allow good counterplay to armor for a lot of the cast. Has like 5 skip neutral options that are all really good. His damage is insanely high and doesn't build you a lot of bursts, and when you hit him, it takes forever to kill him and you build him a lot of bursts and resources. He has this really high success rate on robbing you from bad positions, and if he's in a good position, he just kills you in like 2 interactions and builds you no burst. So that's what he does, and it's very annoying. The other thing I was going to mention about fighting games and like how they're doing is the state of our events and ownership. That is one thing that I think is the ever looming other problem about the genre. Saudi Arabia is part of the sports washing, like buying basically all of the equity in fighting games. They have Evo, which is 4 large events a year, 5 with Singapore, I guess. On top of that, also having Esports World Cup and then running the Esports Nations Cup or whatever it's called. They have like another event that's going to be in the fall. It's just going to be purchasing more and more and more of the community. And part of buying Evo is like, maybe Evo itself doesn't change. When you purchase these kinds of things, it's with the intention towards pushing the audience and the attendees towards whatever your primary thing is, right? Which in this case is like EWC is a big thing, attending or promoting or growing the brand in Saudi Arabia, right? Like that kind of a purchase. The money is not spent with an expectation to regain it. It's an investment in social capital. And like the amount of grassroots or community organized events that like belong to fighting games, I think is going to shrink more and more and more. Even if you think about our last few big events left in the US, right? And like think about things like Frosties, which is really nice to have, but like Combo Breaker, the person who runs Combo Breaker is the GM of Evo. There's overlap there in that way, like not directly, you know, it's sort of his way to do a grassroots event that's not Evo and not owned by it. But like, yeah, I mean, there's that branch there. Or like CEO when Jabali is like the lead on all EWC events. So even those 2 events have lingering ties. It's difficult, I think, to probably not have some kind of relation to it. So then it just becomes like, oh, well, and given the expensive nature of running an event, how do you afford to run an event if not without it, right? And then that becomes the question is what happens if they pull out of fighting games? Like there was an article recently about the increasing cost of running all of this and like how the funds are for like Saudi Arabia spending all this stuff on entertainment and like where they're going to start to cut things. I would imagine sports is like lower on their list of things to cut than video games. What is the backup plan? Or like where does fighting games get sold to next? Like who's gonna have the money to buy stuff, right? That's gonna be a hard thing to figure out, I think. A Trump family-based crypto scam. That's a good backup plan. It sounds like a solid foundation to build on. Yeah, that's another thing too, is that our event, like Capcom, the way they split money is just so awful. Like, I don't get why EWC's prize split was so much better for Street Fighter than Capcom Cup when they had less total money. The SNK split as well. I mean, I think the SNK and Capcom Cup splits, what was it for SNK? It was like 1.5 million or 1.25 million versus like 250,000 or 300,000 per second. The fact that Capcom Cup split was 1 million versus 100,000 for first and second or whatever it was so bad and everybody was so mad at them. And then SNK made it worse. Whoever's decision in both cases, who decided to do that, it's baffling to me that this made it past any sort of roundtable discussion that would be the prize pool. Like, it's completely ridiculous. I'm like, what marketing are we gaining here if we're honest, right? The only headline that you can create out of it truly is like the person who won got so much more than second that it's really bad and sad. And like, if we want to talk about marketing and how smart it is, why are we spending 1.25 million or whatever on the winner and 300,000 for second, and then we're not even running our own event? We're just like on the side at DreamHack Atlanta. Like, so many people didn't even know the SNK World Finals was happening. I mean, part of it is like probably the ownership breakdown, right? Because DreamHack and ESL are also part owned by Saudi, right? I mean, yeah, they obviously have no idea what to do with all the money and they're just like floundering, but it's just like so outrageous because to me, that's a summary of all of it. Every part of the acquisitions everywhere are people spending enormous amount of money and then having no clue what to do with any of it and like how to spend the money in a way that makes sense. This is the frustrating thing. Part of the sales pitch of being purchased or owned or doing stuff with Saudi Arabia is they gave us all this money. That's the thing, is like you ignore all the bad parts of it to be like, we have infinite money to do cool stuff. And then this is what's being done with the money. Like, not like you're running some cool event that's unique, that's by itself, that celebrates SNK games, or you're doing a bunch of smart stuff. You're like giving one guy a fuck ton of money and then everybody else like way less. And then it's stapled onto just on DreamHack instead of being its own event. And it's like, that kind of a budget or like thing could run a combo breaker or like a CEO in its entirety, right? Or yeah, even the game itself. True. Yeah. Like, where's that money in the actual game? SNK spending millions and millions and millions to get Ronaldo or like Speed or KSI or Logan Paul. The amount of sales they would gain from all of that is like dwarfed by if they spent less than $100,000 and threw an event where they invited all the best SNK players in the world to like play the game for like a week. That would probably generate more sales amongst the actual endemic community than like all of the millions and millions and millions they spent. And even if you wanted to get creators and stuff, people who actually play video games that are more likely to generate sales for you at like a reasonable amount, and like have them actually playing the game and showing it off and like being like, this is what it looks like. Because the logo planting on just like, this is what City of the Wolves, I'm doing a thing for City of the Wolves, we're boxing for City of the Wolves. Like, none of that gets people to actually look at the game and care about it and want to buy it. There is no incentive to buy the game if you never show the game in any of your marketing. Yeah, who's watching WrestleMania and then sees Fatal Fury City of the Wolves logo and is like, oh, bet. No one knows what the IP is, so like it's just completely lost. Like, whereas an IP like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, if you staple the logo right onto the front of the thing, then like people at least know that IP. But Fatal Fury is like too old of an IP for you to do that with. It doesn't make sense. It's also mismanaged and like unfortunate. There's lots of things to be frustrated about. I will say this is something important to remember in life. It is awesome to think things are cool. I think in the modern era, there became a time where thinking things are cool is not good. Every time you like a thing and you're like, this is awesome, I like something, this is dope, you go to like engage with the community around it, and then everybody is pissed all the time. I'll tell you what, I could not live my life thinking things are fucking whack all the time. Think about how whack that is for your humanity. You're becoming tarnished in real time. You're doing that to yourself. It's fucking awesome to think things are cool. It's also important You know what you don't like. If you're like, I don't fuck with this, I don't like this, I'm not gonna play it, then don't go play it, you know? Don't engage with it. Don't go interact with the stuff that you know you don't like. I like fun combos and execution generally. So like if the game has stuff for me to do with my hands and my brain at the same time, I'm usually gonna be excited. I also like games that are decently fast and like force you to make quick, sharp decisions under pressure, because then there's like more room to make mistakes. And then finding the right choices in a scrappy game, I think is more fun than being the one to like grind out a really slow paced game. I usually play defensive, I think, in most games. If you're doing that in a game that's already defensive, it's a whole lot of doing the most with basically no actions, right? Whereas I personally like surviving a war zone and just making the best of a scrappy kind of game. You know what I mean? I don't like games where the offense is not good. And I don't like games where the defense is too mindless. For example, in my Invincible Versus video, I talked about Heroic Strike. And someone was like, God forbid a game have a defensive mechanic in the year 2025. People immediately want a shot. I don't mind having defensive mechanics that are strong. Like as an example, I think parry in 2XKO is insanely strong. But my concern about Heroic Strike is not that it's good. It's that it's what you call like a why not move. Why not do it? Fuck it. Why not? Like there's not really like a bad reason to do it. It's like so good that it's like, why not? Grand Blue Brave counter was like this. The first time I dodged a Brave counter and then I tried to hit a button and my opponent was still plus, I was like, oh hell no. I run up and like try to hard bait a defensive mechanic and then I just eat shit like that. Bro, what do you want me to do? Why am I here? Like you can play this game without me. You could just set the CPU to do this and like get it, you know, it's equally as thought provoking. That kind of like thoughtless decision making on offense or defense is not for me. I like things that are like hard to parse and like they have a lot of stuff going on. Having hard execution checks for your brain and deciding the right combos to do. That's like the thing about Street Fighter 6 that I like. I also don't like playing characters that have bad anti-airs. That is like a big pet peeve of mine. The stuff you do like, you should be like, hell yeah, brother, I like this shit. This shit's awesome. And proudly like that shit because you think it's dope, because that's really what it's about. Like I like 2XKO, so I played it. I like Street Fighter. I think it's awesome, so I make content and talk about it. The things I don't like, I'm just like, you know, this is not for me. For the people who like it, hell yeah, brother. And then I get out of there. I know what I like. I play the stuff I like. I don't really worry about anybody else playing the stuff they like. It's not my business. You only have so much free time in your life to do the shit that you want to do that's not your job or your obligations as a human. You know when you work all day and you're really tired and the shift is whack and now you're like, I'm home. Now that I'm free of my job, let's come home and be pissed about something. Now that I'm home, it's time to make my life worse. Don't do it to yourself. Fucking clock in, pick some good shit that you like in a game that you think is fucking sick and then play that, okay? Bless you, boo. He sneezed twice. Every day is a dedicated cat stream. He's always here. He's just here all the time. Happy to be here.